And we're live.
Hi.
Hello.
This is a strange new environment.
Yes.
So we're actually in two different rooms. It's just the way that we have it set up. You see this line right here? This that I just crossed.
Yeah.
This is two different screens, and I'm like pretending that Jun is here next to me.
I'm actually a hologram,
Oh yes.
and technology's gotten so advanced that it appears as though we're in the same room,
Right.
but we're not.
Our humor is very dry.
Ha ha ha.
I don't know how this mic works. How much do I have to project? Do I have to?
I think this is a good amount of projection.
Cool.
All right.
So let's begin.
Okay. Well,
Episode 30. That's another landmark here. It's been a while. We're both hanging out in Toronto. Yeah, we're in the same room. We're both hanging out in Toronto. Some good times with some good old friends, and yeah, we're both on like 3 hours of sleep. Do you feel like it's been like 3 hours of sleep? I feel like I just didn't sleep at all.
I feel
fine.
I feel surprisingly refreshed.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think it was a dim sum.
Yeah.
The food helps.
Yeah. There's this point between, sleep deprived and, I don't know. It goes from you're well rested,
Yeah.
sleep deprived, but then there's this like point between sleep deprived
Magical.
and then, this magical energy land.
Yeah.
Where you just feel okay and actually more creative than usual.
Right.
So that's how I'm feeling.
It's like ketosis. Ketosis.
Yeah.
When you're low on sugar,
Yeah.
right? You initially feel this tiredness, and then your body starts to make ketones.
Yeah.
As a way to produce energy.
So
it's
maybe it's like a sleep fasting phenomenon.
Yeah.
Your brain's like, oh fuck it, he's not gonna get sleep. I might as well just run full capacity.
Yeah.
Until he passes out.
Right, and then passing out would be like 12 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I'm very much excited.
You have updates from the past 3 weeks, Paul?
Has it been 3 weeks?
I think so. It's been a very long time. I'm sorry for our loyal listeners.
Yeah.
We love you and appreciate you.
We do.
We do.
We also respect and love ourselves.
Yes, and that's the most important thing to start off with.
Yeah.
But we also love you.
We do love you. One of the big things that happened is I gave myself a birthday present. So both of our birthdays are coming up.
Oh yeah.
24th, 25th. But I gave myself a $300 birthday present. Can you guess what it is? It has something to do with music.
Oh, $300 musical
entity.
$300. That's very specific. I don't think that's enough for an instrument.
No.
You already have a keyboard.
Yes.
Maybe it is a loop station.
Ooh. Like a loop pedal?
Not loop pedal. Oh, like a Ed Sheeran kind of business.
Now I regret the $300. No, I actually got a software. Music production software.
Oh, wait, which one?
So FL Studio.
FL Studio.
I've been working with it for a bit now, like the trial version.
All right.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I just decided to get the full thing because I wanted to take it a little more seriously.
Okay.
So I think, like, I know you're like sort of experimenting with music as well, and it's a big part of your life right now.
Mm-hmm.
Same for me. So I've taken the next step, and I've been able to like connect it to my keyboard, so it's like a MIDI controller.
Yes, yeah.
So I can record the music that I play on the keyboard, and then change the instruments up in the software and produce music that way.
Right.
It's been very hard.
Oh, I see.
Like it's not an easy task, and like being creative while also being technically capable of like creating music and composing something that flows well together is definitely a challenge, and it's definitely something that someone could devote a career towards, which is what people do. Right? So yeah.
I mean, like I find music production so like fascinating.
Yeah.
Like I think we're at a junction now where literally anyone with a decent computer or an iPad can start making music and start recording music in like pretty good quality.
Right.
Like you used to need a like huge recording studio or a setup, and then you would need connections to like a radio station that would broadcast your music. But kind of the internet's kind of flipped that whole process around on its head, right? So now it's possible for anyone to make a podcast, or not guaranteeing that they'll all be great quality podcasts, but some will be, not bad, fun creative projects to embark on.
Right.
And the same for music. And I think that's that's a very powerful thing that's happening. And I've said this before, but I think expressing yourself and your ideas in music should be like a kind of second language, or a third language, depending on how many languages you speak.
Yeah, fair.
But it just introduces you to such a different world of expression, and a way to connect with people or share your thoughts with people in a way that's not like too intrusive.
Right.
Like I can say weird philosophical things about, or like drugs, on the podcast, and that might completely turn some people off. But if I'm at a coffee house and I sing with my friend Matt, there's a song called "Drugs Are Better with Friends." Everyone is happy to play along and clap and chant the lyrics with us.
Right.
It just loosens people up, music, and that's such an amazing communicative tool to have. So I think it's great.
Yeah,
I think it's a great purchase.
I think so too. I think one of the challenges though is that, again, if you don't have the technical skill, right, and the experience, it's hard to translate sort of thoughts and emotions that are going through your head and like put it into music. And then when the music isn't representing what you actually feel, it's very frustrating, So I think it's always good to approach these sort of creative projects with an open mind and sort of an acceptance that your product is not necessarily going to be an accurate reflection of what you want. It's a process, right? You're getting closer and closer approximations, hopefully, to how you're truly feeling and what you want to express. And I think the best artists are those that can convey exactly how they feel through that medium, and then also to have other people understand it as well, or appreciate it at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have more of an appreciation for like how to develop that technical aspect.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it takes time, but maybe not as much time or effort as people think. I think it's more about like a consistent practice.
Yeah.
Like a meditation practice. Because like for music, for learning the keyboard, for example, like that's a process of like it becoming part of your body. Like your brain will process that piano and those keys as though it is an extension of your fingers and your limbs. And it takes time to form those associations. We're not kids. We have a lot of pre-formed associations already.
Yeah.
So we gotta form them right, and then train them one by one, and mix them up by trying different things. There's some really great teachers on YouTube that tell you how to really mess up your mind playing the keyboard. For example, there's this one exercise where you start off. You know what a chromatic scale is?
Yeah.
Every
semitone.
Yeah. So you start your fingers an octave apart, and you play the same notes, progressing upwards, ba 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 ba. And then the next exercise is, once you get good at that and you are familiar with the pattern, then you put your left hand is on ba, but your right hand starts on ba, ba, ba.
Yeah.
And you do the same stepwise approach, but starting on different notes.
Yeah.
So now you're like really breaking up those circuits that you've made a little bit, and it's forcing you to integrate something new. But there's really cool exercises like that, that you can discover through the advent of YouTube, that really helps you hone the technical aspect and helps you become one with the keyboard.
Right.
And you don't like for like practicing music and these kind of things, you don't really notice that you've improved until, I don't know, it's like a magical process. Like a month later, you haven't thought about it. Maybe you haven't touched your keyboard or piano for 2 weeks, and then suddenly, like, oh, something feels more natural. Yeah. So it's a journey. It's a cool, fun process.
Right.
And I think like I used to think that, oh, what's the point of starting now? I'm so old.
Yeah.
Like that's such a
So
stupid
old.
idea. Like yeah, the best time to plant a tree is now. Just start, and 60 years down the road, it'll be 80, and someone will ask you, how long have you been playing piano? Wow. Oh yeah, for 60 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's just the exciting thing too, right? So it's not like our main thing. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's just a hobby for us. So we don't have a timeline.
No.
We can do this like whenever we want, and like there's no deliverable that we really have to meet. It's so much freedom, so much space for us to explore, and I think that's what's magical about it. Fantastic.
But sometimes you do want the enforced timeline, like if you sign up for a gig or like a coffee house performance,
right?
Then it really forces you to get that right.
Yes.
And that's something that helped me like start off in piano. Like
you need a little bit of pressure, right?
Yeah, that pressure really helps you like focus and key in on what you need to do in that moment. So I think a mix of freedom and discipline.
Right. But you decide what kind of discipline you want to apply.
Yeah, you decide. And then that's hard. But
that's hard. Yeah. I've been trying to discipline myself to study medicine over this summer.
Yeah.
And that has not worked at all.
No.
Granted, like I do want a break for myself. I've been off school for like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
But I don't know how your summer's been. I guess you don't have a summer really. You're continuing your studies.
I've been just creating my own breaks.
Okay.
This is a break.
This is a nice.
It's been a pretty extended break for me.
Nice. This weekend has been a wonderful time.
Yeah.
I just like let loose.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something that one of my friends told me very recently. It's to be comfortable in your skin, and like this is something like it's overused. Like people say this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, be comfortable with your skin. Be comfortable with who you are. But the way that I looked at it this time, and every time it's different, but this time, I've been following the Raptors and the Warriors.
Yeah.
When you see Steph Curry, that man looks like he's comfortable in his skin all the time.
Oh yeah.
And the way he like moves around and like chewing on his like whatever mouth guard, like just like he kind of like moves his shoulders a lot. And when he runs around the court, he's just kind of like dancing through, weaving
it's like
through
a little
people.
kid dancing through. Yeah.
Right. When I imagine that, it's like, wow, that is being comfortable in your skin. And he's not like, okay, he is pretty attractive, but I mean, like, he's not the prime example of like the perfect male or whatever. What I'm saying is, being comfortable in your skin makes you, well, probably more attractive, but just more charismatic and attractive in the grand scheme, like grand scale of things.
Yeah.
In a general sense, not like just sexually attractive, just like as a human being, just someone to be admired, maybe, let's say.
Yeah. Like Steph Curry is a guy who's been counted out his entire career because he's 6 feet and or slightly taller.
He's 190, I think.
Yeah, and shorter players will like inevitably have a much tougher time going up against these 7 foot plus giants. Yeah. So you really have to trust in yourself and carve out your own niche.
Honestly, yeah.
And just do that, and I find that so inspiring about basketball and the run that the Raptors had. And there's so many like admirable stories and players that are part of the Raptors. But yeah, those are the people I look up to. Yeah. Maybe I should be a little more like them.
Play a little more ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot more too.
Yeah.
Outdoor basketball with some friends.
Yeah.
I don't know if you been doing the same in Hamilton, but yeah. I've been like, this is the first time around that I'm really focusing in on improving my game, and I think that's made a big difference, and it's made it a lot more interesting and engaging.
Right.
Because previously, I was just sort of playing whatever I felt like if the ball went in, the ball went in. Like, it didn't really matter to me. But now the stakes, for some reason, have gotten higher, and I just feel so much more satisfaction when I get a basket, and that makes me want to play more, and that makes me want to do it more. So I'm glad to have found that like sort of reinvigoration for the sport, and hopefully I'm trying to take that with all the things that I'm doing now, kind of prioritize the important things and enjoy them with the same vigor.
Yeah, and I don't know. Some people could say like, why are you wasting your time doing basketball?
Oh yeah,
you're supposed to be a doctor, like. But like I find that in the short time that I've been like slightly more interested in basketball and pick up basketball, like I think there's so much you can learn from basketball. Like one thing is just the aspect of focusing and staying in the moment and just keep doing keep doing things till it works out. Keep pushing through challenges.
The Kawhi,
yeah,
stoicism.
Yeah, that kind of like mentality, like just trust yourself, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll work better than other times. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just stay in the moment. And like, one of the Kawhi moments of the NBA like playoffs was the reporter after like winning against the Bucks.
Yeah.
Asked him, no team ever has won 4 straight times against the Bucks team this season.
Yeah.
How are you guys gonna do it? And so like she phrased it in a very like dramatic way, and Kawhi was just like, well, I've never done it before. Well, I haven't even gone to the locker room yet, so I'll think about it then. That's such a Kawhi answer, and that's just who he is.
Yeah.
Like there's that kind of mental aspect, but there's also like a physical aspect. Like you're learning to coordinate and play with your body and like navigate in tight spaces and like and it's a funny thing because I don't think we have much experience doing that.
No.
And or like a lot less than maybe what used to be. Or like there's not as many like physical jobs or situations and places where you have to be, I don't know, interacting and coordinating with and communicating with many bodies at the same time.
I think maybe especially for us.
Yeah.
In like education.
Yeah. If you're in like higher education or
right.
university setting.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. But but those little things, I don't know. They're so helpful. I find them helpful. For example, like being able to assert like where I'm going.
Yeah.
Like who knew like how helpful a skill that is in like basketball and just life, like in the middle of a busy street.
Yeah.
It's like
in clerkship.
Or in clerkship, yeah, or in the middle of a busy ward, like.
Yeah.
If you're like a lost chicken, not knowing where you're going, then like you're just a nuisance to everyone.
Right. You're gonna get in people's way all the time.
Yeah, but if you know where you're going, or at least where not to go, and you signal intent to go places, like that opens things up in the world, like literally. Like people in the middle of a busy downtown street, if you like set your sights somewhere and you walk there intentionally, other people perceive that and kind of like move away from you.
Yeah, and around you.
And around you, right? It's like, wow, who knew that intent and moving with purpose could have like an influence on the world, So like maybe I'm the only guy who thinks about that after basketball.
You're like walking across the street.
Yeah, it's like
you better get out of my way.
That's right. You don't know what kind of baller I am.
Oh my gosh.
But like those are little lessons you learn from.
Right.
Or at least I pick up from basketball.
Right.
And it's so underappreciated.
You know what's interesting though as well? I feel like a lot of these thoughts like percolate in my mind, like very recent to like current events, right? They're very relevant to current events. And then like you kind of forget about it by the time that all that like that hype is over, right? When basketball season is over and I stop playing basketball, I'm gonna forget a lot of these lessons. Or maybe I'll contextualize it in a different manner. Maybe I'll suddenly be interested in like musical theater again, and I'll see like people dancing, and I'm like, oh, that is purposeful movement.
Yeah,
that is dramatic. Like
dancing is right? That is.
I find that fascinating because every single person on this planet is somehow like interacting with like recent events and thinking about recent events, and like sort of shaping how they live and how they interact and behave based on the information that they've recently been getting. So I don't know. That also is a little worrying to me, because then, like, what actually stays with you? What is core to your personality? What lasts long term? And maybe it's a matter of like building that long term mentality by always putting into practice, like we were talking about. So what do you think for yourself? Like, what are some things that you've always sort of been able to go back on, and maybe some activities that you do that sort of represent who you are and who you have been for a long time, like rituals, maybe meditation.
Rituals? What rituals kind of ground me?
Yeah, what keeps you you? Good question.
Yeah. I've always written a lot. I like to reflect on things I'm thinking. And this is now the like verbalized process I have with this other AI human person.
Oh, yeah. That's all I am.
This AI, this is a remarkable, like this bit of technology right here is like latest in intelligence technologies. In fact, I've trained it over the past 5 years to recognize my speech and my
Yes.
thought patterns.
Yes.
And to make it better for me.
My computing speed has decreased significantly.
I've been taking up a lot more RAM.
A lot of RAM.
Sometimes too much. But it's like a symbiotic process, I hope.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting kind of thing that I've expanded on. Or it always used to be writing in my notebook by myself, and then became typing on my notebook, because I thought that was a more instantaneous way to get my thoughts across. And then like, I could actually talk about what I think to other people. I know I could do that. That's I was told. I don't know. I wasn't told anything, but and the progression is, I can speak my mind to people, like, other than one person. Like, I can actually broadcast it, and I can learn to maybe tailor the message in a more like palatable way. And now the progression is, if I add some element of videography or music to that, it can become more compelling and palatable to people. So yeah, like that, me expressing what I've been thinking about and like what's been concerning me, what I've been struggling with, and like that's what helps ground me.
That's your natural element.
That's my element, and I'm sure I would benefit from like a Zen, calm meditation practice. But I don't. That doesn't vibe well with me.
Right. So maybe another question is like, how do you build upon that? Like, so with something like basketball, the lessons that you gain from it, like, do you try to like assimilate those concepts into your core self, your core habit, which is to reflect and to put things into speech and share it? Or is it that you're adding on that extra element by saying, okay, I am someone who likes to think about things and process things and talk about it, and I'm also someone who is avid about basketball and who like will take a lot of my life lessons from basketball? Like, do you add on, or do you just sort of refine your core self?
Yeah. Like the question is kind of like how do you keep improving and adding to yourself? And like, to be honest, I don't think I've been the best at doing that for the past year. I think like mainly
debatable.
Like debatable. Like I'll give myself some credit. I think I've been doing like well and trying to better myself in some aspects. But like the main thing this year that I've been focusing on is to stop myself from getting worse in some aspects, because I felt that like aspects like my health were maybe like degenerating for reasons that may have been self-inflicted to some degree, or may have been like due to my environment. Like I really struggled with my food choices and the way that they made me feel. And like finally, after I don't know, like a year of struggling and trying to figure things out and fine tuning and recording and ordering this expensive stool sample test. Like I finally feel as though I know what foods will generally make me feel good. I know what to avoid. And like, oh, I can breathe again because I feel healthy enough.
Right.
And it's no longer just about like preventing myself from feeling shitty. It's about I feel good. I have the energy. And another thing that I was conscious to build is it's like a network of relationships that I can kind of fall back on, right? So this weekly podcast inadvertently turned into a few hour therapy session.
Therapies, yeah.
Wow, what a great device!
Wow.
Like, this is amazing.
It just keeps on giving.
It keeps on giving. So, not like I've been conscious to like develop more of a deeper relationship with select friends, to get to know other people, to start dating. That was a focus with like the number of books that I told you about.
Yeah.
And now like in July I'll be going on a road trip. So I kind of got to force in the summer that I wouldn't have foregone as part of the MacNad 3-year contract.
Right.
So I'm really happy about all those things, right? So I feel like maybe it was about like learning to take away some things and kind of patching things up to a point where I feel as though like I can start building now.
Right.
I can do something, and that's really exciting. And being in Toronto and being in this kind of space where we're in like this cool open office kind of space, it's you just get this idea that like if you intend on something and you move in that direction, people and resources can be attracted, or you can attract that to your intention. And based on how you communicate it and what you believe in and what work you're like willing to put in, like that will determine the outcome. Whether you stay like a Washington Wizards, like no playoff loser team. No disrespect to NBA players. They're actually they're much more ballers than me, but obviously. Or you become, the Toronto Raptors or the Golden State Warriors. That's a kind of choice that life offers up to you, and that you can consciously take once you're at a certain level of health and wealth and connectedness. When you can rise above the water and you're no longer drowning, then you can think about climbing. Yeah.
Finally see the surface in the sky.
Yeah.
Wow. That is truly an inspirational story. So today's podcast is all about intention and purpose.
Yes.
And moving forward, I feel like actually a lot of our podcasts have been around the similar topic. Or it was about all those sort of perioperative things that allows us to be intentional and motivated and purpose driven, like relationships and health and things like that. Seems like a pretty like straightforward framework, I'd say.
Yeah.
But why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to achieve such what do you call it? Nirvana?
Yeah. We've also discussed the answer to that. We know what social conditions and historical and market forces are against our well-being. It's hard to find community. It's hard to find good foods. It's hard to find time. It's hard to find money and resources to do things. It's a tough time, but we're in a pretty privileged position.
For sure.
But even still, it's hard. There's struggles. But now I'm hoping that I can let my most imaginative and daring and fun self take reign.
I can see the fiery passion in your eyes that I could never see in the computer screen. They're just burning, raging fires in your eyes. I actually really like this. You know, conversation is a lot more natural when you're with the person. Like I'm seeing your entire body language, and it's so much more interesting. No offense, than seeing like this isolated face.
Yeah.
Just going on and on about drugs. I mean, at this point, like you know, I feel a lot more engaged. And it's unfortunate that we don't get to do this more often.
No.
But you'll be in London?
Yeah. London will be a stop,
At one point.
Hopefully our camper van. And maybe we'll have a recording studio thing set up there.
Ooh.
If we can get internet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna be spending a lot of data. Can you get an unlimited data plan and just?
I was considering that.
Yeah. It's only like what, like maybe $50 more a month.
I think that'd be a good choice.
Not a bad investment.
No.
You have money for it, right? Funding. Wow. Things you can do with money.
Yeah. But you gotta know what you want first, and you gotta kind of demonstrate on a prototype scale that you're the kind of person who can make good use of the investments given to you.
It's certainly something I've been struggling with recently. For sure.
Why would you say that?
Well, I feel like I've sort of lost a lot of my direction, and this does go back to the idea of like recent events. So when I'm in like school, like I always have a task to complete, and I think a lot of like students who are like academically successful experience this a lot too. There's always the next assignment. There's always the next test. You have a goal. You know, you can always work towards it, and that's what keeps you going. And then the summer rolls around, and I do have some work to do, but it's not like imminent. It's not particularly challenging either. Right? It's something I eventually have to do instead of something that I want to do or get to do. So it's difficult to sort of find purpose in that, especially when you're inundated just by like pure laziness and complacency. But more so, there's a challenge when there's something you want, but you're not getting it, right? So if there's one thing that you really want and you're not getting it, then a lot of other things sort of fall apart, right? So I know you know what I'm talking about, but let's say we're talking about like this research position that you really, really want, which is something I've never experienced in my life. But let's say like I'm interested in emergency medicine. I really want to do a research project, in emergency medicine, and I keep emailing people and I don't get any answers, and I'm not being recognized. I'm not being like I guess like rewarded for my interest and my constant engagement in the topic. Then you feel kind of like I guess blue balled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then all of your other sort of interests sort of fade away, and like you become single-minded. Which is interesting because in that case you still have a purpose, you still have a direction, but you're paralyzed. Right? So in those situations where there's one thing that you really want but you're not getting it, what do? Do you just sort of like diversify your portfolio? You put your eggs in different baskets and then sort of concede to the fact that you may not be moving forward in this particular thing at a given time? Or do you keep fighting for it? Or is there no straightforward answer? I'm sure there isn't.
Surprise, there's no answer.
Wow, welcome to the Footnotes podcast where we give you no answers.
No answers. Well, I mean, I think blockage points are an interesting point to, maybe that's the catalyst for kind of looking back at your goals and like, why am I trying to like get past this rock? Is this the mountain I want to be climbing? Right. Like, why am I climbing this mountain? So like it might be a good time for a reflection and reevaluation and reorienting.
Right.
And some rocks just can't climb at the moment.
Yeah.
So you walk past it and you're like, I'll get to it later.
Train up for it somewhere else. Maybe.
And I think I've heard of this in terms of PTSD, or when you have an early traumatic or an experience that you can't fully comprehend and work through, then psychologically something that happens is that you kind of ignore or try to suppress that obstacle and just walk past it and leave it for later, because at the moment, like, that's something you're not going to be able to process.
Right.
But it's going to bother you that, like, those kind of hurdles and obstacles and traumas you faced, you weren't able to fully work through it. So when you encounter a similar boulder, you'll be like scared of approaching it, or you may be triggered into like emotional distress.
Right. It's like the what is it? The flight, fight or fright response.
Yeah.
The deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible place to be.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're.
I think just thinking about it myself, I'd rather be moving than staying still in any regard, right? So it's probably best, though difficult and maybe even emotionally taxing, to let some things go. So
yeah,
I mean, you can still move with intentionality, but you don't have to move in the direction that you started out or that you wanted to go in the first place.
So just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah, just keep swimming.
In any direction, you're getting close to land.
Yes, in any direction. You can prove that there's a mathematical proof for that in AI research.
Ooh, it is. Oh, really?
Yes, and like a random bot that makes moves will inevitably get closer to the destination by, even if it's a completely random pattern, by the square root of like the number of steps it takes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's something like that. So even if you're moving completely randomly, you are getting closer to your destination than had you stayed in whatever spot you were in.
Right.
You might look as though you're taking 40 steps back at some point, but that could happen by chance. That could happen to anyone by chance.
Right.
The next steps you could take could be 100 in the right direction.
So that's such an interesting paradox, right?
Yeah.
It's like move with intentionality, even if it's random.
Yeah.
Which is like,
even if you move without any intention, you will get closer to an intention.
But then are you moving with intention, or are you just moving?
You're just moving. And any movement comes from intention.
So maybe, well, you're right. Any movement comes from intention, especially when you put it in the micro scale, right?
Yeah.
You have to take a step. You don't know where your end destination is going to be, but you have to take a step.
Yeah.
Make that step with intention. But on the grand scheme of things, you may not know like if that's the right way to go.
No.
Right?
You're just navigating as it comes, as it goes.
Yeah. Trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process. And I'm recognizing this in myself too, but it's like there's such a paralysis to that. There's such a fear about like stepping where you don't know where you're going sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's something I really should throw out my brain more of. Or I've been trying to do more of. I'm going on a road trip. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
I have some ideas about what I would like to happen, and I think I have some good intentions. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But even if it was a random road trip that I was like, haha, I just want to screw med school and have fun for a few months, the math tells me that I will still have a kind of enriching experience.
We're very similar in that sense, but I've talked to people who are very much like opposed to that idea. They're like, well, what the hell are you saying? Like, let's say, for example, with the road trip, like, what if you get seriously hurt? Or what if you experience some like seriously traumatic event that makes you never want to step outside your house again? Like, you know, people are genuinely afraid of consequences that could happen. And you know what? They could happen, right? Even if they're random. So then how do you make a cautious enough step or decision that will keep you safe enough to keep going, but still challenge you or give you the benefit that you're looking for? It's probably case by case different, but trusting the process, some people say, is just bullshit, because maybe are you just accepting like whatever happens to you is going to happen? Like, is it just a matter of conceding to fate, or is it actual intention and drive and like some sort of purpose there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you should act completely frivolously and without a plan.
Yeah.
Like, who knows where I'll end up? Like, if me and Matt are up in like Boost Factory or Thunder Bay and take a wrong step in the woods, like we might not get out for like 3 days.
Or get shot.
We might get shot on being on private property. Get mistaken for a bear. Like, do I look like a black grizzly bear, from the back?
Yeah.
We might run into like some, I don't know, people want to stab us and take our stuff because we're in an interesting camping van.
Yep.
Like,
a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Like, and I'm a quite like neurotic person, so if no, I don't think that's a bad thing per se.
Okay. No, I'm saying sorry for bringing the fears up.
Oh no.
Bubbling up.
It's like I could, in my most creative states, like come
up with all these
so much paranoia and possible threats, and the thing is, like, the world is so full of threats. Like, the world is mostly like 99.99% uninhabitable things that will kill us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you just start off with space,
Yeah.
How about the sea? Yes.
Oh yeah.
How about random people? Yes. Animals? Yes. Natural disasters? Yes.
Okay.
Spiders that are a million times, I'll just keep going for the sake of this.
Yeah, okay.
HIV that's a million times smaller than a spider. Of course, it can kill you. And that's like kind of the beauty of medicine. You get to see everything that can go wrong. And like, are you still willing to kind of venture into that?
Right. Let's reel it back in though.
Right. So the question is like why should you do that? Like, why
trust the process?
Why expose yourself to like any kind of threat when you can live a safe and relatively sheltered life?
Well, okay, that's also I think I think it's like a radicalization on the other side.
Okay. So what's a more reasonable like proposition?
Like, the question is like, how much focus do you put on and trusting the process,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like manipulating it and putting effort into changing it or affecting it?
Making it work for like your benefit, your end.
Yeah.
So like let's work with the example here. In med school, I want a prestigious psych residency.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to email like prestigious John Hopkins psychedelic researchers, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll do research there. Okay, that seems like a fairly reasonable plan. It sounds like I might be very busy. I might be in like that academic institution for a while, and I'll play that research publication game for a while. And eventually down the line, that may help me accrue resources and connections, and that will somehow lead to a vague outcome that's more gamified
Mm-hmm.
and to my liking. And I think like for most of the times, like the reason why I rejected that game isn't because like, oh, I'm a follower of the process. Like I know what's better. No, it was mostly due to fear. Like I didn't want to like email that a scary feeling prof or be ashamed of rejection that like I didn't get a research position or a publication.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a kind of fear-based like avoidance of that or like of like traditional, more say gamified pathways. I'm not sure. But you know, and I think there's great things you could do through that path too. And maybe for me that's the next challenge that I need to work on, what I need to work on. And so like in that case, if that was my intention heading into it, then I think that would be like a good series of decisions I could take. Like and that would help develop me and to be a more like competent and free and influential person in the world. But if the intention is to something like I want to do so that I can obtain more money and influence for my own ends, like then you're playing a kind of crooked game that and the end result is that you develop some shady aspects of your persona that are maybe just
that you end up treating people as like means to something,
right,
instead of ends in and of themselves.
Like you start to devalue, like let's say some other people or some other personalities, and at the same time you're doing that, you're also devaluing like some parts of your creative self. Like in that game, and where you're like a super Eileen, like my girlfriend, uses the term apps because one of her friends on Facebook posted aspiring pediatric surgeon, so APS. So, but there's a particularly keen and career-oriented person. She calls them apps. So if I become like that kind of apps individual and sell my soul for career, then there's going to be like I'm going to devalue the parts of my personality that are creative, that like to loosen up and have a good time, that values relationships with family, and that's like it can lead you on a very destructive path for your soul, and your health.
We can't say that it's not wrong or bad or necessarily, but I know for us we definitely feel like there's something missing, you know? And what we value is definitely that more holistic approach.
And I think like subconsciously people feel that too, like why? Like if you're working at an investment banking firm, like I think a lot of people quit early and to retire, or quit early to travel the world, or to just get out of that, because it's like I think it's a sickness. It's like I've been reading a book recently by an indigenous writer on I forgot the title, but it's a book about evil and the indigenous conception or mythology around evil. And his kind of hypothesis is that we are living in a world that is completely entrenched in that like thought virus, or it's the Wetico disease, or it's the he says in Algonquin it's also Wendigo. I don't know if you've heard of a Wendigo. I've heard some other people talk about that, but and the way he describes it is it's the part of you that denies the creative soul, let's say, and the part that suppresses that in like a kind of violent and oppressive way, as to like steal your freedom and volition, and like looking at the state of affairs in foreign governments and maybe to some extent in our corporations and our governments, there's like a tremendous amount of oppression of thought and of individual expression. And you know, I probably would never have done something like this had I stayed in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
or had I not come to Canada. So, if you think about it, like 95% of the world is in poor resource settings with poor environments and more oppressive and sometimes straight up violent regimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's very sad to think about, right? I feel like I'm getting sidetracked.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so help me, bring me back a little bit.
I've been following along.
Oh yeah. So
I've been sidetracked with you. Sorry.
Yeah, those sidetracks are good. But we'll return to something substantial, I promise. So he describes this almost like a pathogen of
Thought.
evil, of thought, that suppresses your own potential, and is constantly like downplaying what people are and what people can do. And and that's something I've been like learning more about it and trying to express that, like I've been trying to like say, like, yeah, your brain is a quantum computer that's on like scales or like efficiency or potential that's unparalleled by any computing device available on the planet as of now. That it took like 13 billion years of cosmology and biological evolution to come up with this, and it's like a brilliant system. And the thing is, like, it's a bunch of subcomputers that mostly work in like very defined collaboration patterns, as to facilitate survival. But now we're learning that they can do like other very interesting, almost scary, and sometimes dangerous things as well. Whereas like if the connection pattern between like 5 parts of the brain was like like very straightforward star kind of pattern, then now you can open up and tinker with the hardware a bit so that like every part is interconnecting and communicating with every other part of the computer system, right? And that's like kind of an exponential boom in the potential of the system. Like these might be pretty strange ideas. I don't know if you've talked to me before, maybe I've expressed them. but there's something so special about human potential that we forget, that we only see glimpses of in like some of the world's most creative and artistic geniuses. And we think that, oh, that's a special person. Not everyone can do that. But everyone has the hardware.
Everyone has the potential.
Everyone has the hardware and the potential to be able to do something absolutely incredible.
Right.
And
this has turned into like some sort of motivational speech.
If you'd like to sign up for the Cult of June, subscriptions are 10% off in the month of June.
Of June, wow.
With promo code Footnotes podcast, yeah. And we're back. Right?
It was still going.
Well, that was after a commercial break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
promo code. Yeah. Footnotes.
The Footnotes podcast.
In June.
Yeah. And so, you want to talk a bit of history?
History?
Yeah.
What kind of history?
It's like not just like human history. It's the idea of sovereignty and freedom. It's been, it's typically been restricted at first just to the ruling class, and then slowly to the ruling class and like wealthy people, wealthy men, and then it's slowly spread to like that's kind of an idea of democracy, that individuals are free to make their own decisions and to live by their own volition.
Yeah.
And now it's spread more to like modern democracies, which in theory is the idea that every man and woman, regardless of skin color, has an autonomy and the freedom to pursue what they intend. And so you see this kind of rippling out phenomena of sovereignty, of individual freedom. But in some parts of the world, you also see a regression and a, let's see, an attempt to conceal the divine within people or within individuals, or an attempt to suppress what is, you know, if divine isn't such a palatable word, like to suppress the creative and free speaking soul.
Soul.
Yeah,
which is like potential.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just something.
Right.
Most people get it when you say soul.
General grasp of
Yeah. There's that person there, and so, you know, we're at a strange junction point. Like, you know, if you know, there's a few, let's say, rulers of the world and of corporations that are very powerful and influential, who it is, you know, currently in their best interest for like stability and over time for people to be, let's say, relatively homogenous in thought and pretty subservient and satisfied and willing to buy products and willing to pay taxes. So there's a strange kind of like economy around, let's say, the suppression of the soul, but you know, it just keeps popping up, like the need for freedom. Like you see the protests in Hong Kong, you saw like Arab Springs and like revolutions throughout history. And yeah, I just think we're at a very like critical moment in time where we're starting to understand a bit more about what humans can do with the hardware that we have, but also the conditions that we're living in right now, and what kind of higher forces we're struggling against, what kind of oppressive forces, sometimes that are self-generated, sometimes that are externally generated, that we're struggling against. And so all that is to say is like, so that pursuing that, like pursuing the freeing of potential and of like of your own potential and of others, and creating something that's like really beautiful, inspiring, like that seems much more like of a driving force than like, oh, I would like to email this John Hopkins problem.
Oh my God.
I will gain his validation, and he will give me a research position, and things will be so great. Like at some point you want to like start earning your own respect and validation, and start creating things for yourself. And yeah, there's a paradox. Like we have all the tools to do that now, but also like all the distractions and things in your way that could impede that.
You know, I feel like when people say those kind of things, like, oh, I'm going to get so much happiness, let's say even from like getting into med school or whatever, applying and stuff, they're like approximations of this realization of potential that you've been talking about, right? It's like, I believe that getting this thing will make me, you know, will help me self-actualize and free my soul and like become this this ideal that you're really searching for. Like they're poor, low-resolution approximations of like greater potential, greater purpose, and maybe it's just that people haven't realized that they can dream bigger and dream better, and not just dream about getting these like small, like tangential things.
And the strange thing about dreams is that if you dream it enough, like it happens.
I believe I can fly.
Or if that's too gooey for you, then
gooey.
like the the probability that you'll achieve a goal once you write it down like increases, I don't know, something to the order of like tenfold. It's like a ridiculous increase. Or
Is this backed by research?
yes,
Evidence-based?
Yes, it is evidence-based.
Oh.
Numbers may be slightly exaggerated.
Yeah.
I apologize.
we need to fact check this a little more often.
But once you either write down or like, let's say, visualize a goal or a destination, the probability of you getting there will be much higher than if you hadn't been intentionally and consciously like working through your dream, right? And that points back again to the intention idea. Like you'll get somewhere even if you don't have like, if your intent is random.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can clarify it and consciously map it out a bit more,
mm-hmm.
then your path will be like, there will be a path.
It will be better.
It'll be better and
direct. Hopefully.
You'll be much more likely to make that dream like manifest.
Yeah.
At one iteration of your future days.
Yeah. And I want to clarify too. Just writing it down is definitely not enough. It's like it's a day-to-day like reworking and like reconceptualization of the goal, because of course you can't just sit down and say this is the goal that is going to bring me the most, fulfillments, most satisfaction. Like you don't know that probably.
Mm-hmm.
And so like from the day-to-day you sort of have to like adjust it. Where you're aiming changes every day.
Yeah.
Where you're stepping changes every day.
Yeah.
Hopefully those two will line up at some point, but
yeah.
You're better off trying than not.
Yeah. Yeah. You're better off dreaming than not. And the bigger you can conceive your dream, like the better.
Yeah, the more you have to aim for.
Yeah. So maybe you can end off with some anecdotal evidence or anecdotal things that Jun's heard about. And so, it's related to the dream idea, and when you more fully articulate or consciously map out your dream, you will end up there. That's kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting down with Jen Landicho. She works in the BHSC office. That's our school programs office. And we were she was helping me out with some thesis planning. And it got to the point where we're just talking about like the future and careers. And she was telling me the story, like, oh yeah, like when I was in undergrad, there was this financial planning session, and the dude there asked me to like write down where I would like to live and what kind of situation I'd like to be in like in 20 years. So she wrote down like, oh yeah, I would like to live in a house with like a dog and 2 kids, like pretty close to a lake. Like I want to be able to canoe on the weekends. I want to be close to work. It was like pretty specific.
Yeah.
And she was telling me like, yeah, like I found the note like a few days ago and like I kind of forgot about it. But like, oh shit, I realized that like that's the life I was living right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I was like, that's a neat story. and
then
then and then a few weeks later, I was listening to a podcast with it's the Tim Ferriss podcast with a really influential designer, and her at 4 years old apparently made a drawing and like some descriptions of where she would like to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something like her in like New York City doing art or design, or it was like some vague goal, but like 50 years down her career, like that's where she ended up, and that's the kind of work she's doing. And then so the kind of practice that she has for like disciples or students do, or recommends that other people do, is that like just write out or map out, draw, I don't care, like some place you envision in the next 30 years or 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just write it down, don't think about it. But like that's a kind of very strange dreaming up process that needs to be done. Like your dream needs to be made conscious in order for it to be realized.
Yeah.
And so, and even if you like kind of forget about that, a part of you still remembers, and
still in there.
and it's still like helping tweak your navigations a little bit so that you're heading in that direction.
And just maybe a final point to that too. If you don't have a direction, right, you're not setting your mind, you're not priming your mind to take in any specific information. And you could either be taking in none or all of the information that's available, likely, right? If you're taking in all of the information, you're going to get super tired, and you're going to be like, well, what's going on? Analysis paralysis. You don't know where to go, and it's going to make things worse. And if you're not taking in any new information, then you're not growing. You're not moving to any direction. So at least having some sort of goal is just sort of telling yourself, okay, these are the things I'm going to focus on.
Yeah.
And like, I can't ask myself any more than that.
Yeah. It gives you just enough of a tunnel to work with.
Yeah.
So
breakthrough.
Yeah. Keep dreaming and have lucid dreams. Be conscious in your dreams.
And that's a wrap.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Bye.